Hello, I am the Dark Fae, and welcome back to Confessions of a First-Time Dungeon Master. We are here with session 19, which I'm recording actually like right after our session happened, because I felt pretty good about it, and actually before I've even recorded the previous sessions, because I'm not on top of it, but as always, if you missed the last session, I will put a link to it up in the corner here, and so go check that out if you haven't seen it to get caught up, and here we go. Alright, so here we finally had our big battle. It took, I think, like 3.5 hours. Like, this was a long one. And I think it went well. It definitely had the level of difficulty that I wanted. This is the first time I've ever used like legendary actions or lair actions, and it was kind of a lot to handle for a little bit, and I felt like I constantly needed to look up spells, because as soon as combat started, it was like, oh god, I can't like remember what any of these spells do. So the party, they are fighting basically a kind of modified, like custom, like green hag coven. If you guessed it, good job. So this modified coven, there's 3 of them. There's Swamp Mother Zerla, who was once Zerlena. There's Auntie Emmy, who was once Emaine, and Granny Seisha, who I just kept her name because I couldn't remember what I originally put. So the 3 of them, basically, they have a pool of spells for which like intelligence is their spellcasting modifier. Swamp Mother Zerla is like the leader. She has the kind of the highest stats. So she had basically they each had around 100, some more, some a little bit lower HP. Swamp Mother Zerla, she has AC 18. Her spell DC is 16, and basically they all have like a pool as a coven. They all have a pool of spells. I also modified it so that they, because of like their connection, when a sister dies, they don't necessarily lose those spells. They just end up losing a legendary point. So the way that I did it was that they have, since there's 3 of them, this isn't like one big bad creature kind of, but it's like one coven. So since there's 3 of them, in order to kind of be able to divide up their actions a little more, and also to kind of give them a little bit more leeway on what they can do with their actions, which I will put here so you can see kind of what I customized for them. They have 5 legendary action points, and then as one of the sisters dies, they lose 1. So if there's 3 sisters, they have 5. Down to 2 sisters, there's 4. Down to 1 sister, there's only 3. So it limits a little bit more, kind of, and kind of scales appropriately. Now, I didn't use a legendary action necessarily every single time. Partly just because like I didn't want to overwhelm them with like things that the enemies were doing, even though they do have a large party. They have 5 characters plus the body double, who mostly stayed out of combat just because that's what they directed him to do. And then also with Valhyrie's conjure animals, she can also summon like 1 beast of CR2 or 2 beasts. So she summoned 2 toads, so that turns into 7, which is a fairly large turn order against 3 enemies. So that's why I gave them the legendary actions. Also at initiative 20, which was actually after 2 of our players, there was a lair action, which I think I did a decent job on. I mostly did it as kind of like a one-time thing, unless like I specified that once someone moves into its range for the first time. But lair actions were either difficult terrain, which wasn't really that useful, because all of them are actually not really ranged characters, minus the wizard, who is not joining us for a little bit. And then the second one was kind of like grasping vines that shoot up off the ground within, I think, 15 feet of the hags, and they have to make a dexterity save, in order to prevent from being restrained. And then lastly, kind of like the walls of this layer is kind of like this green silvery smoke or mist that will like spray poison, and so any creature within 5 feet or who enters the area for the first time has to make a con save in order to avoid taking poison damage. So in our combat, I'm not going to go like turn by turn or anything like that, but I think combat went really well. There were a couple of stalls just because I had to like look up spells, or but otherwise it went pretty smoothly. And I think it had the right amount of difficulty that I wanted. I think probably because the legendary actions give them like a little bit more of an oomph, like a couple more like places in the turn order, and some of those effects can be pretty powerful. I started off, I think, with a level 4 lightning bolt, which is a dex save. On a failure, you take 8d6 damage. I'll just put it up. And that was first directed at Basil and the Viscount, so that's where we actually ended the last session. And then basically it was a combination of like spell use, and then at one point one of the hags, they went invisible, and from there they were able to like unleash successive like lightning bolts. And I think those did quite a bit. So it wasn't like one character was like safe the whole time and wasn't like involved. It really felt like all of them were kind of equally in danger and being equally targeted, at least from my perspective. I was trying to kind of keep it even, and I wasn't like really strictly tracking their HP. I was leaving it to them. So I think 3 out of 5 of them went down. A couple of them had lost, I think, one death save, 1 or 2 death saves. And I could have made it so that as they went down, the hags like attacked them to like lose another 2 saves, but I decided, like, since there were other threats kind of still on the board, they would try to attack those first, and then I kind of let them do the dice rolling. I did attack one down character, Basil, and then right after that, so Ivar was forced to kind of use his healing potion to prevent him from making that potentially 3rd fail. So actually Basil went down twice. He got back up and then was knocked back down by the last remaining hag at that point. So overall, I feel pretty good about it, because they kind of had to use all of their resources. I think they used up like pretty much all of their spell slots, like all of their level 3s, and since they're at level 6 right now, and like all of their like abilities like Second Wind, the extra attack, action surge from the fighters. So our cleric kind of was saving a level 3 just in case for Revivify, but then at the end he was like, fuck it, we just gotta kill this last sister, and so he used it for spiritual weapon. Let's see, the people who got the kills, Valkyrie transformed into a giant snake, and so she was able to get like the final kill, because they kind of focused one sister onto Imi first, and so Valkyrie's snake got kind of the killing blow on that one, and then on the other 2, since Tyrell was able to stab them to death because he's top of the initiative order, and they were pretty weak, and he has 3 attacks, so pretty good chance to hit there. I think I like customizing these kind of final encounters, and I've had this ready for like ages. I've had it ready since like I think the 14th session. So I was waiting and waiting for this, and finally they did it, and it felt good to actually like be able to do this encounter. So at the end of it, I think they're all like with some healing. Some of them are in kind of like the mid 20s, but otherwise they're down to like 9 HP, 12 HP. I think one of them's at like 15 HP, one's at like 20 something. So they all got pretty low. And actually, both of the frogs died, and then Valkyrie cast it again, so there was 2 more frogs, and one of those frogs died, so one is still alive. So I'm just kind of like thinking like how much damage the hags did overall. Quite a lot, since actually Valkyrie's HP is okay because she was a snake and then she came back, so she's at like 37 or so. But I want to say overall they did I would say that they did like over 250 points of damage. And this is with like some saves and like half damagey kind of things. So I think it was good. There were points definitely where like they were rolling amazing, like all of their attacks were hitting. And then some where I was rolling really, really well. And then some points where like when they needed to save, they like didn't save, so they got like caught by held person or eye bite or something like that. So it was good. And I think it was also like a hard encounter for me. Like they're hard to kill, man. They've got healing, they've got like all these special saves and stuff, they've got all this. So I think it's given me like a really good not baseline, but like a kind of like a marker for what they can do and like how much they can like how much damage they can do, how much damage they can take and stuff like that. So yeah, but they definitely had some good rolls. And so once combat finally finished, it took like a very long time, like 3.5 hours. They very, very tired, so they end up kind of like cutting off the heads, cutting off the hands of the hags. They're like, fuck these hags. It's finally over, and they end up looting the bodies. So each of the hags has like a roundish stone on them. It's a sending stone that the 3 hags used for each other to send messages to each other. They also find like a perfume bottle, which is a perfume of bewitching, but they don't know because they haven't identified anything yet. And also like a feather, which is magical. And so once like the final sister has fallen, the entryway where they were kind of closes, and then there's another entry as the mist kind of parts in the back, so another entry kind of opens to the hag's cottage. They live in this like kind of nice cottage with kind of underneath the shade of a willow tree. There are like the altered version of just called kiss mushrooms, kind of like the poisonous ones, kind of all growing kind of around the house and like along the path. I mentioned that there's like a pen in the back where there's a pet Kotoblapas there, just kind of grazing. And by grazing, I mean he's tearing some chunks of meat off of what looks to be like a leg of some sort, because there's a pile of bones kind of near the house that seem humanoid, some of them of all shapes. So they kind of gather that the hags were kidnapping people to maybe feed to their creatures, and that is, they didn't necessarily find Furbolg bones because they didn't roll high enough, but that's what they gather, and it is what happened to poor Havian. So they go inside the house after kind of like checking for traps and all of that. The house isn't trapped because it's their home. They are pretty like powerful here. They don't really take these precautions. And so then now I can give them kind of their first like loot hoard, which is something I was like kind of reading up about and realizing that I hadn't really done enough of, slash I don't think we really had like quests that warranted a loot hoard, but so now I just like list off like all the things in the Hag's Cottage that I've prepared. Like there's different potions and elixirs. There's a cauldron full of some unknown magical substance. There's like a severed head in the corner that's like eating a piece of meat. There's a gold necklace that's magical. Some like headdresses and jewelry made out of like bones and feathers and fingernails and stuff like that. There's a jar of candy with Tyrell's name on it, and it is Taffy, which is, I don't know if he remembers this, but it's the name of his sister. And then, not necessarily, it doesn't really mean anything, but it's just like, you know, spooky. Then there's like a cat skull that has like a candle on its head. There's a candle that doesn't go out because it's a candle of the deep. There's some musical windpipes. There's some, just a lot of stuff, like weird bits and odds and ends, and like some of it's magical, some of it's not, some of it's just plain old creepy. So yeah, and so they kind of, they also find, I give them like 20 platinum and 81 gold pieces. And then, so with that, after listing out all of these things, there's more, they decide to take a long rest because it is late. It's been some time since they've arrived, and they're gonna like finish packing and looting in the morning and look for a way out, basically. So for next session, I don't have a lot to prep because I kind of know a lot of what can happen next. It mostly depends on how many like plot hooks I might want to give them to like explore some of their backstories, or if they want to go down the route of like learning what Fairnay has been up to in their absence. So I have both of those kind of ready. Only takes like a little bit, I think, of prep, so I'm not too concerned about that. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with how this went. It really felt like a boss battle, and I know I can't make like every encounter a boss battle, but I'd like to make things more difficult as they go along. So I'll be excited to see where they want to go next, and I hope you guys are too. So thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed, don't forget to like and comment and subscribe for more videos if you are enjoying them. I really appreciate it. So I will see you in the next one. Bye!